Hi, everybody. Welcome to my special podcast, Halloween podcast called Bring It On. And it's actually the first time it happens to me. You know, I had mistakenly erased the podcast that I did with Samantha 2 days ago from a Walmart parking lot. So I erased the footage by mistake. So Samantha was nice enough to redo the podcast. But this time around, there's no like formula. So we're just going to talk about her career in paranormal investigation. So Sam, thanks so much for your time again.
Of course, anytime.
I appreciate it, and the sound will be better. So at least that's the one positive to, and I can talk to you again. So
it'll be great.
Yeah. So Sam, you know, like for those who didn't know you from they know you from Ghost Hunters on television, but there's a lot more to you than just the paranormal investigator. You're a busy human being with a lot of things going on and a passion for history. Tell me more about the passion that you have for history and where it comes from.
I love history. I'm actually a history teacher, and it's something that has always been a passion of mine. But I mean, I definitely, I don't want to say I assume, but I think it has a lot to do with my passion for the paranormal in the sense that I've been going in all these places for all these years and you know, wanting to research their backstories and find out individual stories of people who have been there. So, I mean, that's definitely assisted in my my love for history and things like that. So they go hand in hand for me. But, I mean, I teach history, so it's definitely one of my favorite things in the world.
That's awesome because, you know, when we do paranormal investigations, we're digging in the history of the house that we're investigating, the land, the people who live there, the people who died there. So it's kind of like, yeah, like you said, you know, both the paranormal and history go hand in hand. So when you already have a passion for it, it really helps. And also being raised by the pioneer of the paranormal field changes everything, because when you're young, you know, and something happens, a bump in the night, you know, your dad won't be like, oh, you're crazy.
No. He was like, go back to bed. Where's the flashlight? Find the flashlight and look, you know, find out what it is. It was, I mean, a unique childhood. And at the time, when I was little, it was never any different to me to do everything that we did, to always have the paranormal around. And, I mean, that wasn't something that I thought was odd. But when I went into, you know, middle school, before the show started, it was weird to people at that time, and I was the weird kid whose dad hunted ghosts, and, you know, and at night, like, that was odd. When the show came about and kind of opened people's eyes, people were more willing to listen, and I wasn't the weird, you know, neighbor, and then the weird kid, you know, in school, and it just kind of has grown from there, which is so great. But so looking back now, I mean, I am so very thankful for my childhood and the way I was raised. I mean, I was taught to have quite the open mind and the outlook on life, a little different than other people. So it was great. It was unique, but it was so amazing.
That's awesome. And you have many sisters. You know, I think you were raised in a big family, right? I don't remember how many sisters and brothers you have, but big family.
Yeah, there's quite a few of us. I mean, everybody's seen Haley on the show. She was actually on the show before me because she graduated high school and I was in college. So she was on the show for a bit, and then she went to college. And when she started college, I was graduating. So then we kind of just swapped places, really. There's a few more of us, and we all have quite the passion for the paranormal field a little bit. I mean, the boys are still young, so we'll see what they grow up and what they want to do. But, you know, we never had any pressure on us to go into the field. It was there. If you wanted to learn about it, Dad's more than willing to teach you. But, you know, he's not making us go out and do this. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see who wants to go that way.
That's awesome. You know, in the last podcast, you told me about being 10 years old and being brought up to a lot of cool places your dad investigated, but you went to Rolling Hills Asylum, and that's where you had your first, well, I'll let you tell the story, you know. You had your first experience.
You know, like most people assume, I mean, I've always been around the paranormal, and from the time I was little, I was always sitting in on weekly meetings and, you know, listening to the stories and listening to the evidence and the plans to go out the next weekend or wherever they were going. But yeah, when I was 10, that was the first time I was kind of just let to do my own thing. Before that, I had gone along for investigations and, just stayed right next to Dad and right next to Steve, whoever was around. But Rolling Hills, I was 10 years old, and it was the first time I was just handed my own stuff, my own recorder and flashlight, and said, be free. Go out and see what you want to do. Be careful. The floors are a little rickety, but watch what you're doing. And it was an amazing experience, and I haven't looked back once. I mean, any time that I was given the ability to investigate somewhere or asked to come out and see something, I've always just jumped right on it. So it's great.
It's amazing. Rolling Hills is such a, I've been there a few times, and it's an amazing place, very creepy, old, abandoned, former hospital, half hospital, half asylum, but there's just something there. You can feel it. And did you experience anything while you were there at 10 years old? Do you remember?
I remember experiencing, I was actually sitting with my mom at one point. I remember having some voices on the recorder. But I couldn't go back now and tell you what they said without, sitting down and pulling it up. But, I just remember it being quite overwhelming. I mean, these places are overwhelming for people who have been doing this for, 20 years to walk into Rolling Hills Asylum or another Trans-Allegheny. I just remember being 10, and as much as I had already been exposed to the field, it's a whole different ball game when you're walking into somewhere like that at 10 years old and sitting in the dark. I remember it just being like a heavy place, and just a great time. So I haven't gone back there since, honestly. So I would love to get there one day.
Wow, that's a wonderful place. And, that's something that, like we talked earlier, TAPS, they were there way before the TV show. It's a big difference when you compare it to most of the time, teams that are made for television, right? Mm-hmm. It makes the big difference because you can already feel like the camaraderie between the teammates and that it's a real team. It's not just like 4 actors.
Yeah, well, that's the thing because, sadly, and it's not just paranormal shows. A lot of reality television are people that have been hired for show because they fit, a role that they want filled, and these people don't know each other, and they don't. They work together, but that's what they do. They work together. As far as we go, the TAPS team was a team beforehand. Steve and my dad were together longer than my dad and Grant were. These people were all together, and I was always there, just sitting on the sidelines. So was my sister Haley. And then we picked up Dave along the way because Dave was a great friend that everybody just welcomed in and thought he was a great guy. And Dustin's always been there. Kj was friends with my dad in high school. So, we're all friends at the end of the day, and that's what we were before. And, we're more of a family, really. When I got married, these were the people that were at my wedding. So it's no different when you see us on TV as it is when the cameras are off. We're a family. We go out for dinner together. We have summer parties together. Like I said, we go to each other's weddings and things. It's a family. So when we go to work, it's just more time to hang out and talk to each other. And when we're not working, we're texting each other saying, hey, when's the next time we're going to see you? Or, I'm doing a convention. I'm doing Old Mill Terrafest in 2 weeks. So, the second I got invited to that, I texted KJ. And I think KJ actually texted me. And he was like, I can't wait. Like, we haven't seen each other in a few months. So it's going to be great. We're a family, and it's so much fun.
It is. And from the first podcast we did about a year ago, the one thing that struck me is at one point you were talking about, the team and Steve, and you called Steve and Dave, uncle. And I was like, oh, that's so cute, because that's how I feel when I watch a TV show. That's how I feel. I feel like you said, it's a family. But tell me more about the special relationship, because he actually grew up. And Steve was just kind of there, right?
Yeah. Steve's been around. So I'm about to be 26, and Steve has been around in my life for probably about 18 years. 18 years I've known Steve. So it's funny because I never used to call Steve Uncle. I just called him Steve. And then one day when we were filming, I said something like just about Steve, or I had like a question, and I was near my dad. And he was like, well, you just go ask your uncle. Like, just go ask Steve. And I was like, really? Like, I had never called him uncle, so now it's funny when people talk to about him. I'm like, oh, my Uncle Steve. And, so it just kind of stuck. But, I mean, rightfully so, because he's always been in my life, and he's always been, I mean, not only a family member, but a mentor in the field, and somebody that I always go to with my questions, and has always trained me in the field and made sure that I'm on the top of my game when it comes to that.
Amazing guy, and his dad also is a tremendous guy. I've had a chance to meet Steve's dad a few times, and wonderful man, totally cool. And Steve is also one of the coolest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody's great. I really can't. I don't know. I think I lucked out in life with the people that I was able to surround myself with.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody we talked in the first podcast about, like a good friend of mine, Dustin Perry. And what did you say 2 days ago? I was like, that's so cool.
Everybody needs a Dustin Perry in their life. If there is one human being, I could say that everybody should have, like, someone who's similar to him. And Dustin, like, that's it. I mean, it's just, he's an amazing person, and he's so kind-hearted and genuine. I mean, there's absolutely the Dustin that everybody reads, his funny tweets and his funny Facebooks, and like, that is Dustin. Like, that's him. Like, that's 100% him. He's completely genuine. Like, he's funny and he's sweet, and it's just, again, like, I'm so lucky to the people that I'm able to surround myself with, like, professionally and personally, because they're also such positive role models.
It is something that is very important in this day and age. And that's where I think I've always said that Dustin is my favorite guy in the paranormal field. He's been like a mentor to me. I was lucky enough about 7 years ago to meet him in Gettysburg and did an investigation with him and saw the way he conducted the investigation, the EVP sessions, the respect that he showed to not only the spirits, but people that were there. And I kind of always took Dustin as the guy I wanted to be. Like, even on social media, always positive, talking about the suicide hotline and helping people out. Doesn't get any better than Dustin. Doesn't.
Yeah. No, it's great. He's a great guy.
He is. And something else, that really struck me on the last season of Ghost Hunters is the chemistry also you had on TV with Dustin investigating, and also with KJ. It's, even though you've been... you know them for a long time. Chemistry, investigating, and friendship sometimes doesn't necessarily mix. I could be great friends with a great investigator, but if we're two similar type of investigators, sometimes the styles just won't match, or we'll talk over each other and stuff like that. But
Well, I think something that we really make sure is important is, and we've been investigating for quite some time all together, so we know how each other operates. And even if we don't see eye to eye, and we don't agree, and it's not like there's a conversation, but if, we all kind of think separately in our heads how we're going to approach each individual case. I mean, because everybody has a different method. No matter how much I've been trained by all of the same people over my life, we all handle things a little differently when we walk in. But we all know that about each other. So I know when I'm going into a location, after I've heard the claims, I've met the client, and I've toured the location, I know how each of these people is going to go in and what their first questions are going to be, because I've done this so many times with them. And I know their approach, and they know what mine's going to be just by the type of person I am. And, so it's just, we know that. So when we go in, it's very much like, hey, listen, do you want to start this? Am I going to start? Like, how, you kind of just read each other, and you know who's going to start it and how it's going to flow. And, and that's just important. I mean, we don't talk over each other, and we never say, hey, I wouldn't have asked that question, all right? Because we know that, I know for some reason the questions Dustin are asking are important for him to know. And he's trying to get information that maybe I didn't even think to ask for.
That's so true.
He's been doing this so long, I 100% trust the questions and the approach he has. And we have, Dustin and I, and KJ and I, and Sherry and I, we all have such mutual respect for each other that we're like, hey, listen, you take the floor. Ask your questions, get your answers, try everything you can, and then toss it to me, and I'll try, and then I'll toss it back to you. Never mind the fact that we all have our different approaches, but who knows what, whatever spirit we're trying to talk to, who knows what approach they're going to like more. They might be more willing to talk to Dustin, or, if I'm with Sherry, they might be more willing to talk to me, or you never know. It really is just all about the chemistry and the energy you're putting out and what it wants to pick up on. So, we just let each other go for it. Do whatever you want to do. I mean, we'll see what happens.
And actually let the investigation lead the way instead of having like a strict plan, like, okay, 1 hour here, 2 hours there, and, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why our show flows so well. I mean, because we all know each other so much. So there doesn't need to be a plan. Like, when we go into a place, we know. Like, if I'm going in with Dustin or I'm going in with my dad, or, like, each time I go in separately, I know. Like, I know what questions they're going to kind of go with, and I know what equipment they're going to want to bring. I mean, I could go in the back of the van, and if I'm walking in a place with, KJ, and I'll know what KJ's, what he would like to bring, so I'll go in and grab it. Or I know what my dad's going to want to use, so I'll go in and grab. Like, I've known these people for so long, I know their approach. So, I mean, that's what makes our show flow so well, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And the chemistry, that between Steve and Tango, it's something that through the years, you can feel it.
That's a chemistry all its own.
It is. And they have fun, they're investigating. They seem to have a good time. So there's so many shows. I'm not trying to put any shows down, but there's so many shows that you can almost feel like they can't wait to get the hell out of there. And when we watch the Ghost Hunters, whether it's Jason, you, or Dustin, but, Tango and Steve, they seem to genuinely have fun. And it's important to, you can feel it, you can feel the guys are doing trying to help, but at the same time, they're having a good time.
Yeah. I mean, there are nights where we got to turn the lights on. It's 4 a.m. And we're like, well, really, though? I mean, do you think we have 1 more hour before it's too sunny in here? Like, do you think we... Because, I mean, it is fun. We enjoy it. And, I mean, I love cases. We always investigate a location for a minimum of 2 to 3 nights. But I love, the times where they're like, oh, hey, we can actually spend another night in here. Or we could, we're going to come back next week. Or we're, like, those are, because it's, like, awesome. Because we were having so much fun, and I just want to see what else happens.
Exactly. And that's the thing, about when you watch a TV show that's edited and you have like 15 minutes of investigation from 3 nights of investigation. Sometimes people will think like, wow, they were there for, like you said earlier, 4 hours. No.
I know. And I'm always like, if you look closely though, like our clothes are changing. You can rarely tell because we always all just keep it simple with like t-shirts and jeans, and it's black and white. But, I mean, every once in a while you'll notice, like, somebody's got, like, a pocket on their shirt they didn't before. And it's because it's been 2 or 3 nights.
Exactly. Or you get a ponytail and then your hair loose. Or
yeah, exactly. My hair's up. My hair's down. It's every once in a while my hair, like, changes color because it was, like, a week in between. And I went home and dyed my hair.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just, if you look closely, you'll notice that we're there much longer than the 45 minutes that are shown on TV.
Oh, exactly. I totally agree. Talking to some locations you guys been in, and 3-4 nights, like the Hunter mentioned, when they investigated, they were there for 3 nights, and they caught absolutely amazing evidence. And I know you've been there. And tell me about the experience that Hunter mentioned, because to me it's like 90% of the best experiences I've had, and 90% of the worst come from the Houghton Mansion. So
the Houghton Mansion, amazing. It was one of those places. I think there's like a selection of places as a paranormal investigator, and you're always told about. I mean, Trans-Allegheny, Penhurst, Waverly Hills, Rolling Hills. I mean, these are places that you're told about. The Houghton Mansion. So it was somewhere that had been mentioned to me and how amazing it was, and so. I mean, in the back of my head, there's always part of me that's a bit of a skeptic, but of course I already knew how many people had amazing stuff there. So my energy going in was just so like, yes, like Houghton Mansion, here we go. And it's one of those places, amazing location. The people there are absolutely just the sweetest men ever.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, they are. The Masons there are amazing, from Dave to everybody.
Open-minded, and they welcome you in with open arms and are more than willing to help you in any way. But, I mean, you walk in and it's, no matter how upbeat you walk in that place, it's very heavy. It's a very heavy, heavy location, and you feel it. And, I mean, I know, like, the mess in the building is really high and things like that, so that plays a part in it. But some of the evidence that has been caught there. I mean, and not only from us. I listen to other people's evidence. When they send it to me, I listen to it. I mean, I always want to hear things. And I've just seen some amazing stuff come out of the Houghton Mansion. So it's just, I would go back in a heartbeat. I've only been there once for the show, but I would go back. It's definitely a place that sits in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I talked with Tracy yesterday and Cody that would like to set something up, maybe in March or April and go investigate there. That'd be awesome if you could join. That'd be fun because it's such a wonderful place, that so many things happened to me there. I just want to share a quick story. One night it got absolutely crazy, and the investigation before, like maybe a year before, I felt like something attached itself to me for the first time ever in my life. And I felt like something followed me back home. And I was totally aggressive during that investigation, which is not me. Mark Arvilla was like, Dom, it's not you and Lauren. They were like, they took me outside, And so the investigation after, I wanted to go by myself in the basement just to face okay, I'll do it. And when I went down the basement, I felt that fight or flight feeling that I never felt before. I felt attacked. And I heard on the camera, you can hear like something moving towards me, like a chair is creaking on the floor. And I just ran the hell out of there, got everybody and said, go to the basement with me. And we cut crazy stuff for about 2-3 hours. And that night when I went to sleep, in Mary's room, I saw a dark shadow moving in front of the window for about an hour and a half, and I tried to debunk it any way I could. And at one point, I sat on the edge of the chair, like the bed, like, come on. And then it came towards me, and it stopped like maybe 10 feet away from me, and just disappeared. And I was like, holy cow.
I was going to say, I didn't, I've heard a lot of people have amazing experiences in that basement, and I didn't have an experience in the basement, and we tried everything. But I mean, you can feel that something's there, and I think a lot of us say, you know that feeling when someone walks in a room and you don't even have to turn around, like you just know there's someone else in the room with you. That's kind of the feeling that I can describe when you go upstairs to the bedrooms. That's kind of that feeling. Like you just there's something else around. You can't really see it, but you know it's there, and so that's kind of the feeling I think that follows you the whole time you're in the Houghton Mansion.
Oh yeah, maybe we're talking about mansion, and people don't. There's some people who say, "Oh, where's that place?" First of all, it's a house, an old house with a temple inside that is still active. They're still doing, sessions over there, and the place is overwhelmingly active. Some spirits seem very happy to see us. Some of them seem like, okay, I don't like you. Like, I feel like welcome. And it's almost like going into a party where half the people there are like, oh, Dom, I'm so happy to see you. And half the people are like, I want to kick this guy's ass, They're
like, why'd you bring Dom?
Yeah, exactly. So you try to stay with those that are happy to see you, and those are,
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
It's crazy, but there's some places like that for a reason or another you just feel like a personal connection with. It could be like for you, what is the one place that just draws you back that you almost feel like it's a home away from a home for you in all those places throughout the years?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe. I'm thinking I've got a lot of places in my head right this minute. Trans-Allegheny, that's a big one for me. Somewhere I actually went recently, that Ohio State Reformatory, I went there recently for an event, actually. And it's one of those places that since I left, I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to get back. Because it amazed me, really. It really just did. Very rarely on, like, I don't want to say rarely, but when I go to when I do events that have, a ghost hunt, there's a lot of people. So sometimes it's hard to sit still and soak in a place. But it was one of those places that it made sure you soaked it in. I mean, it was like, hey, here, you're welcome to Ohio State Reformatory. We have paranormal activity. Here you go. I mean, it kind of just showed itself the second you walked in the door, and I mean, it was a great location. So that's somewhere that I was really comfortable being, oddly, and I would go back in a heartbeat. But Gettysburg, somewhere I would get as many times as I could. So there's quite a few. I don't know. I have like a list in my head recently.
Well, I agree with you. Gettysburg is just like, I feel a part of me is there. I don't know why. Maybe former life, I fought there. I don't know. But Gettysburg gets me emotional to the point where I feel like crying. I feel I don't know if it's just me, but there's an overwhelming feeling when you walk through those fields, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's a different kind. I mean, I think as paranormal investigators, we always say, "Oh, there's that heavy feeling," and until you really experience it, you don't really know what we're saying. But it's kind of as if you walk in a room and all eyes are on you, and that's what happens when you walk into the Houghton Mansion. That's what happens when you walk into Trans-Allegheny. I mean, you can feel sadness, but when you walk into Gettysburg, I feel like it's different. I mean, it's more just overwhelming. You know, like you want to know more, and it's a different kind of feeling. It's not just, I mean, it's sad as to say how many lives were lost, but it's more like, oh my goodness, like this is life changing right this minute. That's what this is. So it's a different vibe there than other places, but it's a comfortable feeling.
It is a wonderful place. You know, I remember one night driving my car just before sundown because you can't be on the fields after dark. And I remember, you know, just sitting on the grass, you know, and I was all alone, you know, nobody was there, and feel the wind and feel like I can almost feel like their footsteps, you know, besides me. I was like overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly.
And for you, history buff, you know, that's probably one of those dream locations.
Those are my favorite places.
Yeah, have you ever been to Fort Sumter in South Carolina?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's amazing, though.
Yeah, I went, but I didn't investigate. But yeah, it's another very historic place, very cool place. In Charleston is a beautiful town, and there's so many places. We probably need to have like 3 more lives to do them all.
I know. I mean, we have Fort Adams here in Newport, Rhode Island, and that's an amazing place. We did that for one of the episodes. But I mean, I've been there before just to walk around the fort, and it's somewhere that I also find very, I mean, just, I don't want to say comforting because it's such an odd word to use, but I think when you are in this field for as long as I've been, the word comforting when you're talking about like a location takes on a different meaning. But it's more like I've already talked things that are here. I know their backstories. I know the history. I kind of just want to sit and keep soaking it in. You know, there's no scary feeling when I walk into Fort Adams. So it's just, that's when I say comforting, that's what I mean. I mean, I've already experienced it. I've already made, contact. I know their stories. I know everybody says happens here. So that's what I mean when I say comforting.
And that's one thing, Samantha. You know, I've been to Fort Adams because I live in Quebec. I'm not that far from. I'm about 6 hours. I would say that Rhode Island. Sometimes when I talk to my friends and I'm saying, "Oh, I'm going on vacation in Rhode Island," they're like, "Rhode Island?" You know, people here are more used to like either you go to Florida or you go to Maine. You know, because it's close. But I'm like, yeah. Have you ever been to Newport, Rhode Island? It's probably the most beautiful town in the United States.
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing, Jamestown, but Fort Adams is in Newport, and the mansions there, you know, I did a few tours of the mansions, and I was like, oh my God.
It's a great place. I highly recommend it.
That's amazing, you know, and you're lucky because you live in Rhode Island, but Rhode Island is a very beautiful state. It's not a big state, but there's I love Providence. I love, there's so many cool places to investigate too. You know, Slater Mill in Pawtucket. There's so many cool spots, you know, and we always say New England is like a dream place because in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, there's so many things. And luckily, they're covered by TAP's own team. You know, we talked about it on the podcast that I lost, but tell me more about, first of all, it's just because the show is not on TV right now doesn't mean that TAPS is not still going strong, right? It's still going strong.
Yeah, no. I mean, we do have we have a TAPS home team, which that includes Tracy and Cody, who I know you've interviewed before, and they do cases Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and there's other people on the TAPS home team, and then I mean most states have a TAPS family team, which we've made contact with the team across the country at different states, and they completely go hand in hand with how we investigate and what we believe, how it should go, and we have the same beliefs. So, if we get requests for another state that we can't pack up and make it to, we'll send the TAPS home team that's there. We'll have them contact the team. So yeah, I mean, TAPS in itself is completely different than Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters was a show that was based off the first team, the first TAPS team, but TAPS was growing and was evolving even before the show started. It was already bigger. So it's just, and it continues to grow. And, we were given the chance of having a show, which was amazing, and it opened people's eyes. So it gave us even more reason to expand the size of TAPS or the Atlantic Paranormal Society and make sure that there were more teams out there to help everyone.
Exactly, and you've investigated with them before. Tracy gave me a few examples of that's so cool. That you can, and everybody, that's something that I realized on the show. Nobody is assigned like a label. It's the same thing with TAPS Home Team. It's because when you label somebody, it kind of limits them to, okay, you're the tech guy. So what happens if you can't make it to the investigation? There's no other tech guy. So that's what I found very interesting about the team, that everybody brings something to the table, but nobody is limited in their roles.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I mean, and that's the thing people say to me all the time, as far as like being trained in like a position as a paranormal investigator, they say, you're 26. Number one, I always say question my experience level here, and I say, yeah, I get I'm 26. Been exposed my whole life. Been actively doing this for the last 16 years now. But my training has never stopped. It's not like I was 10 years old and I was trained how to set up a camera and given free run to do whatever I wanted to do. My training has always changed with the times, and when I went from just private investigating to then being given the chance to go on the show, I was completely retrained. I mean, I would go, there was weeks of learning how to set up all of our cameras and and how to just get the best shots that I possibly could. And, learning all the equipment, ins and outs, and how to troubleshoot things in case there was a problem and Dave or Steve weren't around. And so there was that. And then there was I know how to go over evidence. I've been doing it for years and years. But when I started the show, they wanted to make sure that I was completely up to par. I mean, we might only get one chance to fly to Kentucky and be in this location for 2 nights and get this evidence. It's not like I can just go back there and try again. So I needed to make sure that I was going over it 100%, putting in as much effort as I could. So for the first few months of being with the show, I would take home my evidence, but Dave would take home my evidence as well. And if he found something that I didn't find, or if Steve took mine home spur of the moment and found something I didn't find, they weren't going to tell me what they found. I was going to sit down and go back over every single tape to see if I could find it.
Wow. And
that was the way it went for months, until they could be sure that, I was giving 150% all the time. And I mean, it's a lot more goes into it than I think people understand. They kind of think, hey,
oh yeah,
my dad had a television show and I picked up a camera and walked on screen. But no, I mean, I've definitely made sure that never can my role be questioned. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing. So that's always been very important to me.
It's incredible because that's exactly, sometimes, people probably get the impression, that everything is edited by the television company and you guys are there for, but the thing is that investigating is like 10% of the work. 90% is the reviewing of the evidence and rechecking everything 50 times,
Well, that's the thing, and it's just, it's one of those, you go to this investigation and you're there for, maybe 12 hours straight. Well, okay, so you have 12 hours of your evidence on your recorder and your cameras, but everybody else also has 12 hours. So, I mean, what we tend to do is, it might get kind of boring if I sit there and listen to my stuff, because I know what happens, and in the back of my head, if I'm sitting in there thinking, well, I don't really think anything happened right then, I kind of put my guard down on listening and paying attention. So I'll take, maybe 2 or 3 hours of Dustin and Kj's, and maybe 4 hours of Steve and Dave, and just so that it's a completely new fresh of ears, a new set of ears on that evidence, new set of eyes, and it's just, you're going through someone else's investigation, and you're trying to find anything that maybe they didn't pick up on. So, I mean, it's just all, there's a lot more work that goes into it than I think people people understand.
Yeah, it's a lot. It takes passion, and it takes dedication, and it takes a lot more than just, oh, that's cool, we're going to Bobby Mackey, or oh, we're going to Rolling Hills. After that you still have hours and hours and hours, and sometimes you catch nothing. And that's what I love about
I
TAPS.
could easily spend a weekend sitting still for 40 hours reviewing evidence, and at the end have to say, well, and we don't talk to each other about our evidence before we get to the analysis table. We don't. So, sometimes if I'm trying to get like a second opinion on something, I might text Dave and say, hey, listen, can I send you something? Just give me your opinion. But if we have something really good, or if we have nothing at all, we don't say anything until we get that analysis table. So sometimes we have all spent 3 or 4 days going over evidence. We come to a table, we look at each other, we say, nope, so sorry. Like, we spent a whole week there, and we spent a week going over the evidence, and sadly there was nothing that we caught. So, it is what it is. It's the nature of the job. But, every once in a while that, last 20 minutes of evidence review might give you the most amazing thing you've ever heard. So
totally.
We always have our eyes, open.
That's true. I remember one time investigating Moon River Brewery in Savannah, and coming back home, we thought we heard the name Wayne, but then I heard the story about a guy named James being shot by a doctor playing poker in the basement where we were doing the Ghost Box session in DVP. And listening back to my evidence, a video that I already posted on my channel, I realized that it said, I asked, were you killed here? And the Ghost Box theory said, shot by a doctor. So I was like, holy cow. And then you go like, maybe the Wayne that we thought we heard, maybe it was James. And it would fit with the story. That's the greatest thing. I remember texting Shane, and texting Mark, and like, oh my God, listen. And then you're there on the end of the phone, right? And you send them the footage, and you wait until they say, oh yeah, I heard it. Oh no, I don't think so, Dom. The excitement that we have when we catch something is incredible. Feel like little kids sometimes, right?
Very, very.
And for those moments, it makes it all worth the effort, because I would say that 50% of what we catch is not necessarily something we caught the moment we investigated, because like you said, there's so many distractions, so many ways you can just sometimes, after hours and hours, you can just be lost in your mind, right?
You just get tired. We're sitting in completely pitch black. The cameramen can see us, but we can't see each other most of the time. Because sometimes we just sit, we turn off our flashlights. Because, we're just to sit there with our flashlights on, so we'll just sit. If you're sitting in a location for 3 hours straight, just completely exhausted because you're on your third night of being there, there's always that chance that you didn't really pay as much attention as maybe you should have been. So when you go over that evidence, you make sure that you are paying a lot more.
That's awesome. And Sam, since it's Halloween podcast, the last question I want to ask you is not necessarily the scariest place you've been, but if you were to be like a 10-year-old, it would be your first time investigating or first time going to a creepy place, what is the one place, just by looking at it, you would be like, oh my God, I don't want to go in? The scariest place you've ever been in or investigated?
I would have said like an asylum, but that was my first place.
Okay.
I don't know, honestly, because I started pretty big, so it's not like my first case was a residential home, and I moved up to a prison. My first case was pretty big and daunting at Rolling Hills. So I don't know. I think if I was just dealing with more of a case where people were getting, hurt or something like that, that would definitely be something that at 10 years old I would have said no.
Yeah, definitely.
10 years old dad would have said no. So, I don't, but then again, you're talking to someone who was raised in the field versus someone who has decided to take it on and to learn more and to expand. So I think my approach has always just been a little more open, and I'm a little less fearful than other people.
Oh yeah, I agree because you were kind of born into this, and
yeah, I was always just taught that. Honestly, my dad's words to me growing up. This is the quote he tells all of us all the time: is fear is an emotion, and that you can control that. So that's always something I have in the back of my head when I walk into a place. Even if I still get nervous sometimes walking to a location. I mean, you read the claims, and sometimes they are very startling. I mean, if they're all true, then why in the world am I walking in here? Because, it says women get grabbed, women get attacked, and this and that and the other thing. So, I mean, but when I walk in, I always say, listen, I'm here because these people need help. Why am I afraid? Like, I can control that I'm afraid. Like, and why? Why would I be afraid? I'm not getting hurt right now. I mean, that's kind of how I approach things, which I think in return has just made me a little less nervous when I walk into locations.
Well, something, I want to tell you, having talked to you now a few times, for a few hours, I've talked to you more than some of my friends I work with. Because you basically just at work and say, hey, how you been? That's it. But is that, I said the same thing to Cody, but Cody is only 22 and you being 26. I would say you're way wise beyond your age, and you're, I think, an old soul, very, very... cool talking to you, very intelligent, very sweet, and very caring person. I really appreciate the person that you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I really do enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me. I could keep talking with you for hours, but the thing is...
Well, we will do another show soon, I promise.
Exactly. And the 1 hour and a half podcast, Omri podcast will turn out into probably 7 hours. So
probably.
I will post...
Talk soon. Have a great Halloween.
Oh, you too, Samantha. Thank you so much for your time again. Bye.
No problem. Bye.
Bye-bye.